Good evening. Thanks for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking for you this evening. Bulls maintain the winning momentum on Dalal Street. The Nifty reclaims 25,500. The Sensex gains over 1,000 points. The Nifty Bank Index ends at a record closing high. The ceasefire between Israel and Iran holds for the third day. Top U.S. officials cite new intelligence to back President Trump's claims that Iran's nuclear facilities have been destroyed. A defiant Ayatollah Khamenei says Iran delivered a heavy slap to the U.S. and plays down the strikes on Iran's nuclear sites. India refuses to sign the joint declaration at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting after it failed to mention the Pahalgam attack, but included the Jafar Express hijacking in Pakistan. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh slams double standards. This is the first visit by a cabinet minister to China since the Galwan clashes in 2020. JSW Paints is all set to sign a deal to acquire AKZO Nobel's India assets this week. CNBC TV18 had reported last month that the 10,000 crore rupee deal is likely to be inked by the end of June. SBI appoints 6 book-running managers for a 25,000 crore rupee fundraise. Sources say the bank does not need growth capital but wants to augment its capital base. This will be the first share sale since 2017 if SBI decides to proceed. The 12,500 crore rupee IPO of HDB Financial is fully subscribed on the second day. High net worth individuals and existing shareholders lead the demand. 8 health insurance companies under the lens over claim rejections, delayed settlements and unnecessary deductions. Sources say insurers are likely to be asked to pay a penalty and return money to policyholders with interest. Global energy giant Shell refutes reports of any talks with rival BP over a potential $82 billion deal. Wall Street Journal reports talks at an early stage, even as Shell dismisses the report as market speculation. The Aviation Ministry says extraction of data from the black box of the crashed Air India Boeing aircraft is underway. The data will be analysed at the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau lab in Delhi. The plane crash killed 275 people. Sanjay Kapur's death was a big shock, but the Sona Comstar board has ensured complete business continuity with new appointments as the company's MD, Vivek Vikram Singh. He will continue to handle daily operations as he's been doing since 2019. The Axiom 4 spacecraft docked successfully at the International Space Station after a 28-hour journey. Astronaut Group Captain Subhanshu Shukla becomes the first Indian to visit the ISS. The tourism industry in Kashmir is struggling to recover after the Pahalgam terror attack. A special report coming up. Well, let's begin with the day's market action. The benchmarks closed strong today, propelled by positive global cues. The Nifty, in fact, reclaiming 25,500, closing in on a 9-month high. So that's the Sensex, 1,000-point higher. The Nifty up 300 points. Mid-cap index up 345, and it's a new closing high for the Nifty Bank, up almost 600 points, a percent gain coming in there today. Nearly 40 of the Nifty stocks closed higher, with financials and metals topping the gainers list. That was the market snapshot for you, but the big global story. U.S. President Donald Trump has hinted that he could choose U.S. Federal Chair Jerome Powell's successor soon. Speaking at the NATO summit in The Hague, President Trump continued his criticism of Powell and said that he has 3 to 4 people in mind for the job. Powell's term is set to end in May next year. Here's President Trump.
You were criticizing the Federal Reserve Chair before coming to this summit.
Yeah, I think he's terrible.
I was wondering if you've begun interviewing different candidates for the Fed pick.
Yeah, I know within 3 or 4 people who I'm going to pick. I mean, he goes out pretty soon, fortunately, because I think he's terrible. We have no inflation. We have a tremendous economy. Hundreds of billions of dollars of tariff money is pouring in. Factories are being built because they don't want to pay the tariffs, so they're building them all over the country.
Well, that's President Trump railing against Jerome Powell, the Fed chief. Now, the fragile ceasefire between Israel and Iran continues to hold for day 3. President Trump has said American and Iranian officials will hold talks next week. Speaking at the NATO summit, Trump said he will not restart negotiations with Iran as the U.S. had destroyed its nuclear program. Iran's supreme leader has issued his first public statement since that 12-day war. A defiant Ayatollah Khamenei has said Iran has delivered a heavy slap to the U.S. and played down the impact of the attack on its nuclear facilities. Yesterday, a leaked intelligence report from the Pentagon claimed that the nuclear sites were not completely destroyed in Iran, but President Trump had dismissed the report. Today, top U.S. officials backed President Trump's claims, saying that the nuclear facilities have in fact been destroyed. Meanwhile, the heads of the European Union's 27 member nations are meeting in Brussels to discuss the tensions in the Middle East. The leaders of the bloc are looking to revive diplomatic negotiations with Iran over its nuclear program. And after a push from President Trump, NATO leaders have agreed to increase their defence budget to 5% of GDP. Prashant is standing by with more on the significance and the impact of this landmark decision. President Trump taking credit for that decision, Prashant, but what does it really mean on the ground, this 5% number that the EU has signed off on?
Oh, absolutely. It is a historic shift in European security policy. At the just concluded NATO summit in The Hague, the alliance's European members have agreed to dramatically boost defense spending over the next decade or so. A move which was hailed as a quantum leap for collective security by NATO's Secretary General Mark Rutte. Remember, President Trump has been threatening to pull out of the NATO alliance unless NATO's European member countries themselves stepped up spending on their own defense substantially. Looks like the threats have worked. So NATO's 30 European members have made a big commitment to ramp up their defense spending through to 2035. What, of course, is also in the background is the looming threat of Russia, as many European leaders have said. That country's invasion of Ukraine, as we all know, 3 years back, has meant that EU countries, which have long depended on the US, are now turning inward. In the official communication, NATO leaders pledged, and I quote, allies commit to invest 5% of GDP annually on core defense requirements as well as defense and security related to spending by 2035, end of quote. This is more than double the previous target and marks the most significant hike in over a decade. The new commitment is split into two essential categories. At least 3.5% of GDP will go towards core defense, troops, weapons, military operations. Up to 1.5% of GDP will be allocated for broader security needs, including cyber defense, critical infrastructure protection, and energy security. Notably, remember, Spain withheld from this commitment, citing economic constraints. Well, guess what? US President Donald Trump, who has long pressured allies to spend more, responded with a warning about potential higher tariffs on Spanish goods. But overall, Trump struck a positive note on Europe, saying, and I quote, we are here to help Europe protect their countries, end of quote. Some numbers now. Back in 2021, Europe was spending about 1.5% of GDP on defense. By the end of 2024, that figure had risen to about just under 2%, translating to roughly about 450 billion euros. Analysts at Bank of America estimate that if the new 3.5% core defense target is met, annual spending could soar to between 850 to 900 billion euros. It'll represent hundreds of billions of dollars and euros in new military investment. The big question is, how much of the 5% number is rhetoric and how much of it will really happen? Remember, President Trump will demit office in 2029. Can we really know what the world will look like after 2029? I'm not so sure. So yes, while this is a big commitment, we will have to track how much of it really comes through in terms of spending and orders. Back to you.
Yes, we will have to wait to see. Prashant, many thanks for joining us. Now, India has refused to sign a joint statement at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting as it diluted the country's stance on cross-border terrorism. Now, this after the document failed to mention the Pahalgam terror attack, but included the Jafar Express attack in Pakistan. The meeting ended without a joint communique due to Defence Minister Rajnath Singh's refusal to endorse the statement. Addressing the SCO meet, Rajnath Singh reiterated India's firm position against terror and said that peace and prosperity cannot coexist with terror. In a reference to Pakistan, the Defence Minister said there should be no place for double standards at a multilateral forum.
It is imperative that those who sponsor, nurture, and utilize terrorism for their narrow and selfish ends must bear the consequences. Some countries use cross-border terrorism as an instrument of policy and provide shelter to terrorists. There should be no place for such double standards. SCO should not hesitate to criticize.
Well, that's Defence Minister speaking in China. Parikshit standing by with more on India's position. Parikshit, the Defence Minister refusing to sign the communique on the back of the omission of the Pahalgam terror attack in the joint communique. But this is not the first time that India has taken this position.
You know, even previously, Shireen, India has not signed statements related to the SCO declaration because we did not approve of Chinese language on the CPEC or the Belt and Road Initiative. So India's stand was very well known. Now, when it comes to the issue of terrorism, we saw how China made references to terror attacks in Balochistan, but did not want to make any reference to what has happened in Pahalgam. So what we saw, and this is what sources accompanying Rajnath Singh said, that there was a dilution of India's stand, and therefore we could not endorse this statement. So there is no draft that has been finally approved by the SCO Defence Ministers meeting, but this is itself very, very significant. This is the first time that Rajnath Singh, the Defence Minister of India, is travelling to China for a meeting since the Kalwan attack took place in the year 2020. A lot of discussions are taking place between India and China on how to manage this relationship better. But Rajnath Singh there making it very clear that if India is ever attacked again through terrorism, we will hit back. And the safe havens of terror are no longer safe. And the action was directly aimed at Pakistan. We've been grappling with the rare earth magnet issue. China has lifted curbs for other countries, but not for India. Clearly, there is discomfort, anger with some of the curbs that India has imposed on Chinese companies, actions against Chinese CEOs. There have been enforcement directorate investigations as well against certain Chinese phone majors. So all of that has irked China. This will be a complex relationship which we are trying to manage, but there are difficulties which still remain. And that's why you're seeing a lot of high-level meetings like Ajit Doval going to China for the SCO meeting. Before that, a meeting between Sun Weidong of Chinese Foreign Ministry and Vikram Misri in Delhi.
Parikshit, many thanks for joining us. The big corporate story, JSW Paints is all set to sign a deal to acquire AKZO Nobel's India assets this week. CNBC TV 18 had reported last month that the 10,000 crore rupee deal is likely to be inked by the end of June. Rachna standing by with more. Rachna.
Well, JSW Paints and AKZO Nobel are close to signing on the dotted line. Sources tell me that Parth Jindal-led JSW Paints may soon pick up nearly 75% in Dulux maker AKZO Nobel India for over 10,000 crore rupees. As you may remember, CNBC TV 18 had first reported on the 26th of May that this deal was close to being finalized and will be signed around this time. What we also learn is that this deal would value AKZO Nobel India between 12,500 and 13,000 crore rupees. The deal has been a while coming. AKZO's Dutch parent, AKZO Nobel NV, had initiated a strategic review of its South Asian decorative paints business in October 2024 and has since been carving out its powder coatings and R&D arms into separate entries while planning to sell the paints business. So once done, AKZO Nobel India's Dutch parent will be exiting the Indian market completely. Interestingly, when we reported on this deal in May, AKZO Nobel's India market cap was at around 16,000 crore rupees. Today, that market cap has fallen to 14,500 crore rupees. And so this deal is still at a discount to the valuation assigned to the company by the street. I also want to draw your attention to the timing of this deal. There's a time when legacy leaders like Asian Paints, Berger, Kansai Nerolac are already facing heat from a new wave of challengers. These are Birla Opus, Astral, JK Cement and Pidilite's Haisha Paints. And so adding AKZO Nobel's portfolio capacity and distribution chain is expected to be a transformational move for JSW Paints, which has been in the business for just 5 years now. Experts also tell me that once the synergies kick in, the deal could redraw the contours of India's 70,000 crore rupee paints business. For JSW Paints, Parth Jindal, the closing of this deal has been a while coming too. At Davos earlier this year, he told CNBC TV 18 that he would give anything to make this deal happen. Now CNBC TV 18 has reached out to both the companies and is awaiting an official confirmation on this story. So we will update you as and when there are fresh developments. Back to you.
Well, thanks very much, Rachna. Yes, Parth did tell me that in Davos when we spoke earlier this year. Expected to close this week. Now, the second day of HDB Financial Services 12,500 crore rupee IPO fully subscribed, led by strong demand from non-institutional investors and existing shareholders. The non-institutional portion has been subscribed 2 times. The QIB portion has been fully subscribed. The retail portion has been subscribed 60% with 1 more day to go. State Bank of India has appointed 6 investment bankers to manage a planned 25,000 crore rupee QIP. Sources say the bank does not need growth capital but wants to augment its capital base. The appointed bankers include HSBC, Citi and Kotak. This will be the bank's first share sale since 2017 if it does decide to proceed. Dalal Street has seen a flurry of block deals today, with promoters looking to offload holdings worth over 1,700 crore rupees across 4 different companies. Shares of Delivery, PB Fintech, Coforge and recently listed One MobiKwik Systems changed hands today. In fact, the market has seen block deals of over 21,000 crore rupees in the last few weeks, with the promoters of Hindustan Zinc offloading stake among many others. A CNBC TV 18 exclusive now. Around 8 health insurers, including Niva Bupa, Star Health and Tata AIG, are under the regulator's scanner for allegedly violating norms related to claim settlement. Sources say these insurers may be asked to pay a penalty or return money to policyholders with interest. Yash joins us now with more. Yash, what exactly are these violations that the regulator is looking into?
So as you correctly pointed out, the insurance regulator, that is the IRDAI, conducted inspections in the first lot of about 8 insurance companies. 4 of these were standalone health insurance companies, and the balance 4 were multi-line insurance companies, having of course their health portfolio. What we've been given to understand from our sources is that lapses or irregularities were found with all these 8 insurance companies. But one important caveat here, what we've been given to understand from our sources, is that the degree of lapses, of course, was different for different insurers. For some, as I'm told, this was at a very ignorable level, but for others, it was serious as per the insurance regulator and the sources there. Which are these 8 companies which were inspected? These included Niva Bupa, Star Health, Care Health and Manipal Cigna. Also, in terms of multi-line insurance companies, these included Tata AIG, ICICI Lombard, as well as HDFC Ergo. What we've been given to understand is that the regulator, looking at the violations which have come or irregularities which have come from the first 8 companies, has decided to expand its scope for inspection, going to all general and standalone health insurance companies. And once the investigation ends, the regulator could possibly look at either putting a penalty or even asking insurance companies to refund money to their policyholders where there were irregular claim settlements along with the interest attached to it.
Yash, many thanks. And staying with insurance, the regulator is also likely to continue with limits on management expenses beyond this financial year. Several insurance companies had raised concerns over the limits, but the regulator is likely to extend them beyond FY26. Sources also say the IRDA is unlikely to cap commissions for individual business segments. Now, Walmart's global CEO Doug McMillon met with the Prime Minister Narendra Modi during his 2-day visit to India this week. During the meeting, McMillon reiterated Walmart's commitment to source $10 billion annually from India by 2027. He added that the company was actively working with local suppliers to reach that milestone. Sona Comstar MD Vivek Vikram Singh says Sanjay Kapur's death was a big shock, but the board has ensured complete business continuity with new appointments. Vivek Vikram Singh also said he will continue to handle daily operations as he's been doing since 2019.
Our new plan for the next 10 years, and it will be in our annual report, is this, that we actually ignored the East completely while we were looking West, which means we ignored actually India, we ignored China, Japan, Korea. So now the new strategy will be look West and East. We have to add many more new product verticals, because the biggest delta actually came not from EV or West, it actually came from adding new products. So whether it be eVTOLs, humanoids, AV, autonomous vehicle, software, the increasing software content. So that in a nutshell is what we wrote down for our next 10 years.
Well, that's Sona Comstar on its plans after that unfortunate demise of Sanjay Kapur. Up next, celebrities arrive in Venice for the wedding of Amazon founder Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez. There are also protests in the city centre over the lavish wedding. That and more when we return. Catch all of CNBC TV 18's news and updates on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X and Jio Hotstar. In international headlines, Israel has killed over 90 people in Gaza in the last 24 hours. 31 were killed this morning as the army intensified attacks in the enclave. This comes as US President Trump said that Israel and Hamas have begun renewed push for a ceasefire in Gaza. Russia said that it has repelled Ukrainian drone strikes targeting several cities, including Moscow. The country's army said that its air defenses intercepted multiple aerial bombs and shot down 335 Ukrainian drones. Meanwhile, Russian forces have taken control of another settlement in eastern Ukraine's Donetsk. President Trump is hit out at New York mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani after his victory in the Democratic primary. In a post on Truth Social, the U.S. president called Mamdani a 100% communist lunatic, adding that his rise marks a dangerous turn for the Democratic Party. In response, Mamdani encouraged President Trump to learn about his policies to make the city affordable. The Global Vaccine Alliance, Gavi, has secured over $9 billion in pledges at its Brussels summit to support immunization programs till 2030, while the total fell short of the $11.9 billion target. Gavi called it a strong outcome in a tough global climate. The US has refused to fund Gavi, with Health Secretary RFK Jr. attacking the Vaccine Alliance. However, Gavi managed to secure $4.5 billion from development finance institutions. The UK government pledged £1.2 billion. The Gates Foundation committed $1.6 billion. Energy giant Shell has denied reports that it is in talks to acquire its rival BP. Wall Street Journal reports that Shell is in early stage of negotiations to seal a deal worth over $80 billion. However, Shell has maintained that no bid has been made. The denial follows Shell CEO Vail Savan's repeated assertions that the company had a high bar for acquisitions. Speaking to CNBC earlier this month, Savan had said that Shell remains focused on share buybacks, and the BP CEO had denied reports as well. Take a look.
We've been very heavy on share buybacks. So we've had now 14 quarters in a row of buying back over $3 billion of our shares every quarter. We continue to see significant value locked into the Shell shares. And so when we look at that marginal dollar of investment, we compare M&A with the potential to buy back shares, and we continue to favor our own shares. That doesn't mean that we don't look at M&A opportunities, but we have a very high bar for those opportunities and continue to believe that that dollar is better spent in our own share.
We're a strong independent company, and we've got sector-leading growth. And if we can deliver the sector-leading growth, and the first quarter is a fantastic example of that, then I have no concerns. I think we're going to do great.
Now, the Aviation Ministry says extraction of data from the black box of the crashed Air India Boeing aircraft is underway. The analysis of the data from the cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder is currently underway at the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau labs in Delhi. The Ministry of Civil Aviation says efforts aim to reconstruct the sequence of events that led to the incident. 275 people died in the plane crash on the 12th of June. At least 2 people have been killed and over a dozen are missing after cloudburst triggered flash floods in Himachal Pradesh. Officials have said that at least 4 cloudburst incidents were reported in the state's Kullu district alone. An orange alert remains in place, and authorities have advised people to avoid unnecessary travel. At least 3 people have lost their lives after a bus plunged into Uttarakhand's Alaknanda River. 9 others are missing from the bus, which had 20 on board. The bus was headed uphill when it lost control and fell into the river. Rescue operations are underway. The Chief Justice of India, Justice B.R. Gavai, has said that the Constitution is the supreme authority in a democracy. He added all 3 wings of democracy, the legislature, executive and judiciary, function under the Constitution, and none can act beyond its limits. His comments come months after Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar said elected lawmakers are the ultimate masters and that Parliament is supreme. Dhankar had hit out at the Supreme Court's decision to impose a time limit on the President to decide on bills referred by state governors. The Axiom 4 spacecraft has docked successfully at the International Space Station after a 28-hour journey. With this, astronaut group captain Subhanshu Shukla becomes the first Indian to visit the ISS.
It is a privilege to be amongst the few who have got the chance to see the Earth from a vantage point that I have been able to see now. It has been a wonderful ride. It has been great, and I was looking forward to come to space. It is something to look forward to as such, but the minute I entered the International Space Station and you guys, this crew, you just made me feel so welcome, as if you literally opened your doors, like your house doors for us. That's true. So, but it was fantastic. I feel even better. Whatever expectation I had of coming here, they were surpassed by the view, of course. That's the big part of it, but by you guys as well. So thank you so much. I think this was fantastic. This is wonderful, and I'm very, very confident that the next 14 days are going to be amazing. Doing, as you said, advancing science and research and working together. Thank you so much.
Well, that's Group Captain Subhanshu Shukla at the International Space Station. Now, tourism has been the heart of Kashmir's policy and economy, but that heart has been skipping beats ever since the Pahalgam terror attack in April, which specifically targeted tourists. Rumi Chakrabarti and Shilpa Ranipeta report that even though there are signs of a recovery since the Indo-Pak tensions simmered down, the state's tourism industry is not in a happy place.
For years, Kashmir has been sold to tourists as paradise on earth. But the Pahalgam terror attacks on the 22nd of April 2025 have cracked that image. The attack targeted tourists specifically for the first time. It happened even as expectations were high that this year's number would surpass the 1.08 crore tourists who visited the Union Territory between January and June 2024, according to the government's India Brand Equity Foundation. Players in the hospitality industry say the attacks brought inbound tourism to a grinding halt.
After Pahalgam incident, all the bookings are cancelled. Mostly near about, it's less than 10% new arrivals. You see, I don't have the actual figure of the losses, but losses are in crores. You see, this was the peak season, beginning of the season, in the month of May, when all the schools throughout the India have vacations. And that on the day one, this unfortunate incident happened. So all the bookings were cancelled.
The government of Jammu and Kashmir has reopened 16 of the 48 tourist destinations it had shut down after the attack. But tourists are yet to return in any significant numbers. With tourist arrivals plunging, so have jobs. Experts say many taxi drivers and tour guides have had to look for alternative revenue streams. Even hotel owners are planning to cut jobs significantly to sustain their businesses.
And many jobs have been cut off, and if the situation remains safe, there will be more job cut-offs towards the people who are engaged in this sector. Will be cut off to 90%, 95%.
We have 3 lakh people involved in the hotel industries. They will get unemployed. Every hotelier, not me alone, every hotelier is planning to cut off 50% staff. I can say it's very the horrible condition for hoteliers and for local business too.
The Indian government and the government of Jammu and Kashmir are working to spark a revival in tourism. But these efforts are yet to translate into anything concrete. And a resurgence in this season, many fear, will be a tough ask.
From shikaras floating listlessly on Dal Lake, to hotel lobbies going quiet, to silence across shopping centers and bazaars, Kashmir's tourism industry is gasping for breath. With the peak season slipping away and no clear roadmap for recovery, Kashmir's tourism sector is once again facing an uncertain future. But this time, players say it feels worse than when the pandemic was in full swing. The valley's economy is going through one of its harshest seasons yet, but the hope is that tourists will eventually return by the time the next season kicks in round in October. With inputs from Ishan Vane in Kashmir, in Mumbai, Rumi Chakrabarti.
Well, a terrible blow there to Kashmir's economy. And before we wrap, celebrities arriving in Venice to attend the 3-day wedding festivities of Amazon founder Jeff Bezos and American journalist Lauren Sanchez. Bezos and Sanchez were spotted whizzing through the city in a speedboat. Some of the famous faces expected to attend have already begun to arrive, like first daughter Ivanka Trump and her husband Jared Kushner. Others on the guest list include Kim Kardashian, sports star Tom Brady, and many others. Some unwelcome guests also planning on attending include Venice locals who've been protesting against the Bezos ahead of the wedding, with signs posted around the city that read "No space for Bezos." Protest organizers have cited concerns for over-tourism, have vowed to disrupt the wedding, saying they would potentially try to block access to some venues. Well, here's wishing Jeff Bezos the very best of luck with his wedding. And with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks very much for watching. Do stay tuned to CNBC TV 18, CNBC TV 18 Access and CNBC TV 18 Prime, your #1 destination for the news. From all of us here, goodbye. Thanks for watching.